Have you ever had someone try to push your buttons? Maybe a family member with a loaded comment, an old friend dropping guilt like it's casual conversation, or even a neighbor stirring drama just to see you react. And watch them wait for the explosion. They lean in slightly, eyes sharp, expecting the flush of anger, the quick defense, the hurried apology or outburst that hands them the reins. Instead, you stay neutral. Your face doesn't change. Your voice doesn't rise. You breathe, pause, and respond with calm clarity, or sometimes with nothing at all. In that moment, the tension flips. Their certainty cracks. They suddenly look uncertain, almost uncomfortable, like the script they wrote has been torn up. The failed trigger is one of the quietest but most powerful things you'll ever witness. If you've lived long enough to recognize these little power plays, after decades of family dynamics, long-standing friendships, community entanglements, and the thousand small negotiations life throws at you, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Manipulation only works when you react. When you don't, the whole game collapses. Calm people are hard to manipulate, not because they're cold or unbreakable, but because they've learned that the strongest defense isn't a counterattack. It's simply refusing to play. Manipulation is, at its core, the attempt to control someone else's behavior through emotional leverage. It doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle guilt. If you really cared about the family, you'd... Sometimes it's manufactured urgency. We have to decide right now or it'll be too late. Sometimes it's false choices. Either you're with us or you're against us. The manipulator doesn't need force. They need an emotional spike. Anger, fear, shame, insecurity. That short-circuits clear thinking and pushes you into compliance or defensiveness. Once that spike hits, they hold the frame. They set the pace. They decide what happens next. But when the target stays regulated, the leverage vanishes. No emotional fuel means no momentum. The manipulator is left holding an empty hook, and suddenly they're the one off balance. The nervous system is where this battle is really fought. Manipulators count on your fight or flight response kicking in fast, heart rate up, adrenaline surging, focus narrowing to the immediate threat. That reactive state makes you easier to steer. You defend without thinking, apologize to restore peace, agree to escape discomfort. A calm, regulated nervous system disrupts the entire cycle. When your physiology stays steady, breathing even, muscles relaxed, mind clear, the emotional spike never fully lands. You observe the provocation instead of becoming it. Neuroscience shows that people with strong self-regulation resist reactive conditioning far more effectively. Their baseline calm acts like a firewall against attempts to hijack their state. After years of weathering life's provocations, arguments that once felt like emergencies, guilt trips that used to sting for days, you've probably noticed how much harder it is for anyone to rattle you now. That isn't luck. It's the quiet reward of accumulated composure. Emotional reactivity creates leverage because it hands control to the other person in real time. A quick defense signals you're rattled. Over-explaining shows you're trying to prove yourself. Raised tone or immediate compliance reveals you've been moved off-center. Each of these reactions equals control for the manipulator. They know they've hit the mark. They know you're now operating in their frame, and they can push further. The more visibly you react, the more they learn exactly where your buttons are and how hard to press. Calm short-circuits this. By refusing to escalate, you deny them the feedback loop they need. No visible anger means no confirmation the guilt landed. No hurried justification means no admission of wrongdoing. No immediate compliance means no reward for pressure. The manipulator is forced to either back off or escalate themselves, often revealing their own insecurity in the process. The power of the pause is one of the simplest yet most devastating tools against manipulation. A delayed response, whether it's 5 seconds or 5 minutes, breaks the momentum they were counting on. Neutral facial expression. No furrowed brow, no tight jaw, no forced smile to cover discomfort. Slow, visible breathing that never quickens. Controlled tone that stays even and low. Stillness in these moments doesn't just buy you time to think. it shifts the entire energy of the interaction. The person trying to provoke suddenly feels the weight of their own words hanging in the air without a reaction to bounce off. Tension builds on their side instead of yours. You've seen this work in real life, perhaps with a difficult relative who used to get a rise out of you every holiday, only to find now that your calm silence leaves them flustered and backpedaling. The pause isn't passive. It's active refusal to be pulled into their rhythm. Guilt hooks are especially common and especially effective against reactive people. If you cared about me, you'd do this. Why are you being so distant all of a sudden? Everyone else agrees. Why don't you? These statements are designed to trigger shame or fear of disconnection so fast that you comply before thinking. Calm people don't absorb the guilt instantly. They evaluate it. They notice the emotional payload without letting it land. They might respond with a simple, "That's not how I see it," or "I hear you, but I'm not changing my mind," delivered without defensiveness or heat. By staying regulated, they separate the feeling from the fact. The guilt hook dangles, but there's no fish to catch. The urgency trap works the same way. We need an answer now. This is your last chance. If you don't decide today, the opportunity is gone. Speed is one of the oldest manipulation tools. It short-circuits reflection and forces impulsive choices. Calm individuals slow the pace deliberately. They refuse to be rushed. "I'll think about it and get back to you." There's no need to decide this second. That refusal to match urgency often forces the manipulator to reveal their hand. They either soften the pressure or double down and expose the tactic. Either way, the calm person keeps control of the timeline. Emotional detachment serves as one of the strongest defenses. This doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means listening without internalizing, observing the provocation without reacting to it, responding without escalation. You can care deeply about the relationship and still refuse to let someone else's emotion dictate your state. Detachment creates space between stimulus and response, between feeling and action. In that space lives choice. Manipulators hate that space because it robs them of automatic leverage. Calm can feel intimidating precisely because it's unmovable. You can't predict the reaction, so the usual tactics feel risky. You can't trigger them, so the emotional bait goes uneaten. You can't rush them, so the pressure tactic loses force. That unmovable energy creates psychological gravity. People start orbiting you instead of pulling you into their orbit. The manipulator who once felt clever now feels exposed, uncertain, even small. The micro behaviors of unmovable people are subtle, but unmistakable. Minimal fidgeting, no nervous adjustments or restless hands. Steady eye contact that neither stares aggressively nor drops submissively. Consistent tone that never wavers into defensiveness or placation. Short, clear responses that don't expand into justification. Control of the body equals control of perception. Others sense the steadiness and instinctively grant it more weight. Calm can tip into passivity when it becomes avoidance, suppressing real emotion, withdrawing from necessary confrontation, shutting down instead of engaging. True strength knows when to respond and when to hold back. It speaks when required, stays silent when silence serves, but never confuses detachment with disconnection. Building emotional stability is a practice, not a gift. Slow, conscious breathing techniques, 4 counts in, 6 counts out, anchor you in the moment when provocation hits. The delayed response habit, counting to 5 internally before answering, creates space for clarity. Tolerating discomfort without rushing to relieve it trains resilience. Observing emotions before reacting turns triggers into information rather than commands. These are skills honed over time, and the older we get, the more valuable they become. You've already lived through enough storms to know that the ability to stay centered is worth more than any quick victory in an argument. Here is the final truth that cuts through decades of interactions. You can't control someone who controls themselves. Manipulation depends on your reaction. Remove the reaction, and the manipulator is left holding nothing but their own discomfort. Calm isn't about never feeling. It's about never letting feeling decide for you. You've earned that steadiness through years of navigating real life. Now let it protect you. The next time someone tries to pull your strings, breathe. Pause. Stay neutral. Watch how quickly the power shifts when you refuse to hand it over. Because the person who can't be rattled can't be ruled. And in a world full of people trying to steer you, that may be the greatest freedom of all.